stuff's happening. I was at the Warriors media day yesterday when the news broke that Farhan Zaidi had been fired. And the Giants moved right to Buster Posey. Today, Buster Posey press conference this morning. Then we're doing this live stream. We're going to talk mostly 49ers. David Lombardi's 49ers. We know 49ers is hot and heavy, but I'm sure you've got some Buster Posey questions. We can address that. I talked to Buster a little bit after the presser. Very clear what he wants. He wants kind of be prepared, organization. There's going to be some analytics being used, but also he kept talking about it's a memory-making business. Mm-hmm. Something Farhan Zaidi would never say. You know what? You can maybe it's a little bit of a cliche, but I think it's connection to the community. Buster, I asked him, what does that really mean? And he says it's like when the Giants were great, he saw videos of like bars watching the games on the road and the bar, something great happening and everybody in the bar exploding. He goes, those are things that people in the bar are going to remember. You're going to remember who you were with. You're going to remember that moment. And 20, 30 years down the road, you'll still remember that. That's the stuff he's talking about. Again, it can get a little PRE, a little cliche, but Buster's not a cliche guy. He's not a PR guy. So I think it's meaningful coming from him that you're there for the fan fulfillment, make them part of something larger. But that's another thing Posey kept talking about. He wants to be part of a larger thing, winning championships, playing meaningful baseball into October. People still talk about Busters in a playoff game run over the Reds. Tim Lincecum's big games. This is the stuff. Farhan Zaidi was trying to create this. He just never talked about it, and fans thought he didn't care about it. Buster Posey is all that. So I think that's the easiest thing is Buster Posey is the Giants culture. Sometimes Farhan Zaidi fought against it. Now we'll see what Buster can do. The general manager he hires obviously is going to be key. The staff he puts together. I talked to him, like Brian Sabian's name is coming up. Obviously the architect of those 3 championship teams that Buster was part of, drafted Buster. He's either going to be part of this team or he's going to be, a very, very big part of what the way Buster wants to build this is kind of in a Sabian kind of model. Baseball first, preparedness, guys who love baseball. This is not something that Zaidi didn't want. He just never said it like this. So I think day one starts like this. This is who the Giants are. Buster Posey, the personification of this.
And I think that the memory-making quote, we could tie that into the 49ers. They haven't won the Super Bowl in 30 years, but they've definitely been in position to make a lot of memories.
Yeah, they've played some memorable games in the last 30 years.
And you talk about the bars around the country and merchandise sales, and this is a business, and I think Posey was alluding to that with what he said. The 49ers have that cooking right now. I think they set an NFL record last year for jersey sales. They've got the star players on the team that I don't think the Giants are loaded with right now. They're relevant every year in a way that the Giants currently aren't. And Buster Posey was part of those 3 World Series in 5 years where the Giants definitely were relevant. So different sport, same kind of goal. And I just think it's fascinating that both head team executives from the football and baseball side of the 2 San Francisco teams, the 49ers and the Giants, are both former players. Posey will be a Hall of Famer.
Warriors, right? Mike Dunleavy Jr.
And Mike
3,
Dunleavy with the there you go.
I just look at the Giants, look at the 49ers and the Warriors, and what do those 2 teams have? The Giants have stars, superstars, compelling stars. You are there to follow the story of Steph Curry. You're there to follow the story of Brock Purdy, Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey. We can go down the list of the 49ers. Giants don't have that. And I think there is, with some resistance by Farhan Zaidi, he wanted them, but he wanted them in a certain way. I think Buster Posey's like, we just got to get those guys, make the pitch, make the atmosphere right for them. Shohei Ohtani was never coming to the Giants. Aaron Judge was never coming to them. They could bid the dollars, and they did. That was not going to happen. What's the environment that you can put together that makes great players want to come? Let's get other great players, draft them, acquire them, and then it sets up a perfect situation for them to come. That's what the Dodgers did, set up signing Ohtani. Yankees have done the same thing to retain Aaron Judge. The Giants need something like that. 49ers have this, and again, they ran through some issues with the money with Ayuk and Trent Williams this summer. It's going to happen in the future. There is a salary cap. There is not in baseball. There is in football. But the accumulation of stars is how this works in the marketplace. You got to win. You win with stars, but you also get fans to care about you because you have stars that they've followed for years and will continue to follow.
Yep. I always remember when we first started together at The Athletic in 2017, we showed up, started covering the 49ers that year, and they did not have stars. And you posed a question to me. You said, whose jersey on this team are fans going to want? Mm-hmm. And now we fast forward to where we're starting with the San Francisco Standard, 7-8 years later, there are a whole heck of a lot of jerseys that fans are willing to wear at the 49ers.
Well, I thought you were saying, are you going to buy David Lombardi's San Francisco Standard jersey? Don't buy my jersey. But no, it's how people view teams. It's how they follow teams. Now, it was Kyle Shanahan's first year. It was fascinating, but they needed better players, and they've accumulated better players. They got to win a Super Bowl for this to be super memorable. But the Giants need to do some of that stuff. The Warriors are at the end of this incredible run with Steph Curry. Now they're trying to milk every bit of it, but they've had it. They've had this run. They might get 2 or 3 more years out of it. But it's in this market, paying the prices that fans are paying, battling with the other teams, you need the reason. Why do you click on this? Why are you watching this inning? Well, Posey might come to, Judge might come to bat. I do that with Ohtani, clearly, with all Dodgers games. Would you do that with the Giants for the last 3 years? I cannot answer that. I don't know.
I grew up watching Barry Bonds, and that was the draw. I mean, that was extreme. Back in those days, you'd go to the game, get your concessions when he wasn't up, time everything to make sure that you were in your seat when he was going to be hitting. And I think that a lot of Giants fans were kind of conditioned through, this goes before Bonds, obviously. They saw Willie Mays, they saw Willie McCovey, they saw big names, and then in football it was the Montana Rice era to Steve Young. You have to be able to give Bay Area fans something of name value.
Yeah, if you don't, you better win.
Yes.
Neither thing happened for Farhan
And
Zaidi.
I think usually those two things are correlated.
No, I don't think there's a question about that.
So
we got some questions here.
Yeah, and we got the iPad working here, so we can go through a lot of the questions. I think you answered Luke Vaughn's question about the San Francisco Giants and what the Posey era is going to mean. We have some 49ers questions. We have people demanding now that we talk the 49ers. So
let's talk 49ers.
Ready to talk the 49ers. The first question was about Jalen Graham. They picked up a new linebacker. I think a lot of people are a little jumpy right now because Fred Warner's on the injury list. He has an ankle injury, but it's a day-to-day injury. The 49ers did not re-sign Jalen Graham. They picked him up off of Washington's practice squad. This was a San Francisco 7th-round pick in 2023, but don't worry, they did not bring him back because Fred Warner is seriously hurt. In fact, it's for another linebacker spot. Curtis Robinson, the Stanford product, tore his ACL. He was the 4th linebacker on this team. He played a lot of special teams. They had 2 extra roster spots, so Jalen Graham is back for that. And then there's 1 extra roster spot now, Tim. So the 49ers, we'll see what they do next, but this is obviously going to draw a lot of interest because Kalia Davis is a candidate to come off of injured reserve this week, and Ricky Pearsall is a candidate to start practicing this week. That means they could theoretically take him off of the non-football injury list by next week before the Seattle game. So there is a chance that we see Ricky Pearsall back on the field soon.
And we've seen the receivers kind of positions juggled a little bit, right? Jawan Jennings was not the guy you thought would be leading them in yards. It would be Brandon Ayuk, $30 million a year receiver. Obviously, we chronicled that in great detail, his demands for that kind of money. They finally paid it to him. Deebo Samuel, big time. And now he's having a good year. Not saying he did, but Jawan Jennings has lipped over them. What could Ricky Pearsall do? We don't know. But I think they're kind of curious because they don't seem to love Jacob Cowing, by the way, another rookie who's been out there. There's been something a little off on that. He was probably ahead of Ronnie Bell now after Ronnie Bell's big drop 2 weeks ago, but I don't know what the sense of him is. I think Ricky Pearsall is somebody they're looking for. Like, he might be able to produce 1 or 2 catches a week. He might be someone who gets snaps. Now, is that over Jennings? I don't think so. Is that over Deebo? I don't think so. Guess who it might? Maybe Brandon Ayuk. Maybe. I'm not trying to start anything.
Crazy. It's crazy that we're talking about that.
Don't aggregate us right off of this.
Well, and just watching Ayuk, it's not quite there yet. To me, when I watch it, the the separation, the explosiveness isn't there. It's really hard to measure this kind of stuff because receivers are typically measured just by the catches in each game. And then you talk about the separation statistics, but those are typically only available for when the receiver actually catches the ball. So if he's not getting looked at as much, you got to look deeper into the tape. And Kyle Shanahan says, yeah, but he has been open. He just hadn't worked out that way.
Is it against zone defense? Is it against man?
Yeah, zone and man. There's a big debate. I will say that there's one metric, and we already have a month worth of data now. It's from Next Gen Stats, and it's separation at the time of the catch. Ayuk had been perfectly consistent through 4 years. It was 2.9 yards, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. 4 games in, it's only 2.1 yards this year. The only reason I bring it up is because he had been a model of consistency prior to this year. All of a sudden, I expected him to have to play his way into shape. So maybe once the calendar turns to October, which it has today, and the 49ers play the Cardinals on Sunday, maybe he comes to life. Maybe that diving catch was what he needed this past weekend against the Patriots. But so far, everything across the board, the production is alarmingly lower than it had been before.
Anecdotally, Purdy's talking about having his guys make plays. Kittle saying we love it that he's throwing the ball up there, letting us make a play. 50-50, 55-45, whatever percentage it is. You were seeing Jennings obviously making those plays against the Rams. It was unbelievable. They weren't even 50-50. They were like 30-70, and he's plucking the ball. Purdy puts one up for grabs for George Kittle on 3rd down in the end zone. Unbelievable. Kittle goes up in traffic, comes down with one of the best catches I've ever seen Kittle make. As Trent Williams said, maybe the greatest catch he's ever seen. I think that was kind of the moment.
It was good.
Maybe they were better. Odell Beckham Jr. There's some other ones you might put in there, but that's okay. It's a teammate. It was a great moment. Purdy throws a similar pass to Brandon. I'm not saying it's exactly the same. It was a little bit overthrown. There was a little bit of a cornerback. Peppers was kind of cutting in the way, but you talk about letting a player make a play. Usually that with Purdy to Ayuk last season, that was his first thought. I'm going to let Ayuk make a play. He threw it up there for Ayuk to make a play. It's an interception. Threw it up for George Kittle to make a play. It's a touchdown. It was the same spot in the end zone. It just really hit me. If you're talking about trusting a receiver, if you're talking about if I let it go to this guy, am I sure he's coming down with it? I don't know if that thought is there. It's probably because he didn't practice all offseason, all training camp. Maybe some of that connection with Purdy's a little off, and it's going to reflect it. They got to win games. They can't be working to get Ayuk. Oh, let's make sure Brandon Ayuk is set up. They got to. If he's not going, the ball's not going to him. It's because there are other receivers out there that the ball should go to.
Yes. Listen to this. This is catch percentage. So the percentage of targets to a receiver that are caught. Ayuk as a rookie, 62%. Second year, 2021, up to 67. Third year, 2022, up to 68. Last year, contract year, 71%. This year so far, 52%. Ooh. So the sample's not tiny anymore. So I can't just say, oh, small sample, disregarded. We're in October now. So it's time. We could see some of these numbers, and all of them across the board.
I would say 71 is a really high number.
Yes, he had an awesome year last year. Yeah. And when you looked at the grading and the advanced metrics, he was there with those elite guys, which is why he stood on his leverage for. I mean, he stood on it longer than I think was necessary, but that's why that was his leverage. Was the year that he delivered. Yeah,
and right now he hasn't been worth it. There's plenty of season left, but which is when you start thinking about Ricky Pearsall getting time, like where's it going to come from? Let's be aware that this thing could be out there somewhere. Let's get another question.
We have a question here. Do you think that the fact that the 49ers, this is from Drew Bridges, by the way, does the fact the 49ers signed Graham but not a running back mean that they're not that worried about Christian McCaffrey? First off, two separate things I have to say here. Signing Graham instead of a running back has nothing to do with Christian McCaffrey. They needed to get somebody to replace Curtis Robinson. On the McCaffrey front, people just need to calm down. I get it. Fantasy football
That's a big one.
Runs everything now. People picked him first. They're obsessed with this situation. The truth of the matter is that Achilles tendonitis is unpredictable. It's also a dangerous condition because it could lead to an Achilles rupture. So it's very important that McCaffrey take his time, do the rehab right to get that tendon back into good playing shape. I will say that things are not nearly as dire as we see on social media. When we saw him, we were there together. before week one, he was running, he was cutting quickly, and then it flared up. The inflammation flared up. So they said, okay, we got to shut him down for 4 weeks to get this inflammation down. He's gone to Germany. Based on what I understand, things are going well. The ramp up scheduled to start this week. And Tim, people just don't like uncertainty as an answer. But in this case, uncertainty is the only answer because the 49ers need to see how the ramp up period goes and if the inflammation stays away. And if it stays away, I think that he's going to be back sooner than a lot of people
and he
think
could be fresh at that point. Again.
Yes,
but we don't know. The indefiniteness of it, if that's a word, is the problem. Obviously, I know for fans, probably for them too. I'm sure Kyle Shanahan doesn't love that he doesn't know for sure. I go at it 2 ways. This is what you do it the safe way. This is exactly what you need to do. He's an incredibly valuable player. You will want him healthy for the playoffs, period. I don't know that they can win a Super Bowl without a healthy Christian McCaffrey. You can't guarantee that, but you got to win as much as you can until he's ready to come back and then see what he's at. Maybe he's got fresh legs. And 2, thank God they got Jordan Mason. I mean, if they didn't have Jordan Mason, I don't know. It would be Garendo. I mean, he's going to fumble the ball. I'm tough on fumblers. And that
is Kyle.
Yeah, that's terrible. It was a kickoff, but you can't do that. You can't turn into a defender when you're getting tackled. The ball comes out, and he's looked terrible running the ball also in a few times. And people, he's only been given a few carries. That's what you get when you're a young player. You get a few carries to prove what you can do. And if you can't do it, somebody else is going to get it. Right now, it's Deebo Samuel's their backup tailback. And if Jordan Mason gets hurt, then it's then Deebo Samuel's your starting tailback. My point, separate from the McCaffrey thing, separate from the Graham thing, is I can't believe they haven't had a veteran running back on the practice squad this whole time. Because running backs, what if Mason does get hurt? Put McCaffrey to the side.
Like you say, it's 2021 all over
exactly.
again.
You need another running back, and then you don't want Deebo to be the guy for 20 rushes a game. I'm surprised Jerick McKinnon, Matt Breida we saw in camp. I don't think these are great answers. Something. So you're not going to Isaac Garendo. You're not going to Patrick Taylor Jr. Somebody who's carried the ball in big NFL games, preferably that Shanahan knows well. Those would be 2. Jerick McKinnon, former 49er. Matt Breida, certainly a former 49er. I don't know why you don't. I do think they get a little over-optimistic about stuff on positions that get hurt a lot. We saw it with cornerback in 2020, right? They ran through all these corners because they were counting on Jason Verrett to be their starting quarterback. Oops, he got hurt in the first year. Guess what? He's been hurt every year of his career. I would think at some point you need a veteran running back on that practice squad just in case, because guess what? Running backs get hurt.
I think part of the problem is that they demand such good play, such versatile play from the running back position that it's hard. A lot of people think it's, plug and play, put in a guy that's been decent before. But that's why you see Kyle Shanahan favor Deebo Samuel over other actual running backs whenever he needs to spell Christian McCaffrey or in this case, Jordan Mason, because he needs that pass catching adaptability to be able to continue to run a lot of what he runs.
And you don't fumble. You don't fumble. And I'm convinced that they would have traded for McCaffrey at any point. But the reason why it happened right there is Jeff Wilson Jr. fumbled as the kind of the lead back. It was fumble 6 to Atlanta.
Yep, I remember that against game. Atlanta. Yes.
And guess what? They trade for McCaffrey like that Tuesday. Fumbling in the Shanahan thing is one of the ultimate sins.
But the thing, the double-edged sword of McCaffrey is that he's actually raised the standard of what they expected the running back position schematically, because he's so damn good as a receiver that it's harder to fill in for Christian McCaffrey and keep what you've installed schematically going, because he can do so much from that running back position.
Although he did fumble in the Super Bowl.
And then that happened, very ironically. He fumbled twice on opening drives last year, and they lost both of those games against Minnesota and then against the Kansas City Chiefs.
They were mowing down the field in the Super Bowl first possession. He fumbles. But that happened. You carry as much as that. Sometimes you're going to fumble. Just don't do it when you get one carry a game. That's the point.
Here's another question. This is from an anonymous commenter. Brock Purdy was a 7th rounder. Juwan Jennings was a 7th rounder. Kittle was a 5th rounder. Talanoa Hufanga was a 5th rounder. Why are they so spot on in the later rounds but struggle with the first round picks? Well, first off, they've hit on some first round picks. Ayuk was a first round pick. Maybe it's not the best example to use right now, but he did get paid. But Nick Bosa was a first round pick. People, need to realize that even the first round has less than a 50% hit rate in the NFL. So the 49ers might be slightly under the league average hit rate for the first round. I know it started disastrously with Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster in 2017, but they're not all that far off of the first round hit rate. Where they do differentiate from the norm is where this commenter refers to, and that is they have hit on a much higher rate in the 5th to 7th rounds.
And by the way, they did trade 3 first-round picks
for Lance.
Trey
Yes, yeah.
And that's the funny part about it is they weren't thinking this way, but like if you trade 3 you're not that good in the first round anyway, so just trade them. Although they were not good with that pick either. I think we are seeing, we're seeing all these really young guys getting time, especially on defense. You look at it, it's really young. Malik Mustafa starts. Jair Brown's a second-year player. Those are your starting safeties right now. You have Diamond Lenore is a young player, a rising young player. We're seeing just a lot. Tatum Bethune get snaps at the end of last game, rookie. We don't really have those 3rd and 4th-year players that you would normally think, guys coming up on their next contract because they traded those first-round picks, because they missed some other picks. They have the top. And they've got a really nice younger base coming. What they don't have is like those 2nd and 3rd year players. Boom, you just count on them. Javon Kinlaw would be older than that, but like that era.
Yes.
And it's not like their roster is lacking compared to any other roster. I mean, you look at the Detroit Lions, got a great roster. That defense looked terrible last night. They've got a really good roster. As Shanahan is telling me, before training camp, we're going to be favored in every single game we play. That's a pretty good roster. Correct. But those players that would be coming on right now, they don't have those, partly because, or largely because of that Trey Lance trade. Those are 3 first-round picks that you could have had, Tristan Wirfs, you name the players that they could have had with those picks. Micah Parsons could have been right in there. That is what happens when you make a trade like that. But then they take it, they make up for it by having Brock Purdy with 7 round pick. It's just the way the balance happens. But someone pointed this out at the time. I can't believe there's anything that compares to this. That 7th round pick quarterback lighting it up with a 7th round pick receiver.
An undrafted free agent running back or Jordan Mason.
This is, you usually see first round pick, right? That's what you normally see from those positions. Those 2, left tackle, pass rusher. Usually first round picks across the board, maybe a 2nd round pick, but not many. And the 49ers are riding it with 7th round picks and undrafted free agents. Remarkable findings. They haven't been great at some other things, but this is how you balance it out. You hit it with what you hit. You have what you have. You don't have to. It isn't first round picks. That best first round pick isn't what wins the Super Bowl. Best team is what wins the Super Bowl. The Chiefs have been doing that, and that's not all first round picks either. They've hit first round picks, but that isn't all first round picks. That's a bunch of other things there.
We have a question here that's related to this. We're talking about the 49ers roster strength. Who's going to give San Francisco the biggest challenge in the NFC West this year? And I think perfect timing for this one, because I view September as preseason now, extended preseason.
Well, they never nobody plays in the preseason.
Yeah. Nobody plays. No, a lot of people don't practice. A lot of people hold out. But the rules are also truncating the offseason program. So you see a lot of sloppy football in September. I think we saw defensively a lot of sloppy football last night with Seattle and Detroit. Yeah. So basically, you play your way into shape through September. I think we've seen the 49ers do that to an extent. Calendar turns to October. This is when it really becomes, I think, indicative of what a team is. And then the 49ers have historically turned up the Jets in November. But anyway, now these next 2 games, they're both against divisional opponents. The Cardinals are coming into town on Sunday, and then the Seattle Seahawks are waiting for the 49ers on Thursday after that. I really think the tone for this season for the 49ers is going to be set over the next 2 games. I personally think that the biggest challenge is going to come from Seattle, because last night it was a horrible defensive performance. I get that, but they were missing essentially their entire defensive front to injury, so that probably had a lot to do with it. You look at Mike McDonald, their new coach. He gave the 49ers some schematic trouble last year as the coordinator of the Ravens. I still think the 49ers are cut above Seattle, but our commenter here asked who the biggest challenge is. I'm going to say the Seahawks.
No question. No, listen, the 49ers lost the Rams, but the Rams are 1-3. And you talk about, September, just survive September and then get to October, 2-2 is that. but it would be nice for the 49ers if they were 3-1.
Yeah, they should have been 3-1. That was a game they blew.
If they beat the Rams are done. If they beat the Rams, they're 0-3. They fall to 0-4. They're over. That's not happening. They didn't do that. That's life. They have to live with it. They blew that game, and I totally agree. Like, they got to beat the Cardinals. You have to win your home games, and then let's see what happens Thursday night, because they might need that to win the division. Because if Seattle could be 2 games ahead, 3 games ahead if they win that game, depending on what happens next week. But I think the 49ers are built to win these games. Like, we just seen, they are very talented. They play wear you down football. Be better later, what is that?
Be better longer.
Be better longer, and just keep playing. Now, they screwed that up with the Rams. That was not what happened, but they have this in them. Maybe the Vikings loss isn't bad right now. We're seeing what the Vikings are blowing out.
It's looking like a quality loss at this point, man.
Sam Darnold
and Purdy are at the top of all the efficiency.
The Shanahan they're going to get applications to be the backup for Kyle Shanahan from across the league. But this is when you got to win games in division. They're 0-1 in the division already. They got to beat the Cardinals, who looked terrible last game, but they're probably a decently talented team.
They have a solid offense.
Kyler Murray always gives the 49ers defense.
And they're 30 defensively. So I think if the Niners defense plays the way that it did 2 weeks ago against the Rams, this could be a game that reaches the 40s.
Not having Fred Warner at least at 100% could be a problematic, because they are so much slower without Fred. Well, no Greenlaw, too. That is a slow defense without those 2 guys. It's such a difference. Like when they had Willis and Bowman, I got used to that, right? Cover them. That's their, and then they didn't have them. I go, what happened? There's nothing there.
Guys are hitting the edge.
That's what I think about when I watch the Eagles defense. Howie Roseman does not believe in investing in linebackers. He believes in investing in everything else. I look at this and go, where are the linebackers? Because you've seen Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw do it for the 49ers. You've seen other linebackers do it. When you don't have them, it's noticeable. It's noticeable, at least to me.
The Rams don't invest in linebackers.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
They traded away Ernest Jones IV before the start of this year. It wasn't until this season that Sean McVay beat a fully loaded 49ers team, and I know they're missing guys.
In the regular season.
In the regular season, yes.
There's another game that was pretty good.
The NFC Championship, too. We could talk all about the injuries in that game. Trent Williams regretting playing on the high ankle sprain. That was a good Rams defense, though. Yeah. Obviously, they don't have Aaron Donald anymore. But typically, especially in the regular season, the 49ers had just abused that matchup against the Rams linebackers, and it had been a problem. And I think that, you see it with the 49ers. They win a lot of games because they have such an adaptable linebacker and Fred Warner. This Shanahan offense has taken the league by storm. And it's about adaptable skill position weapons. It's about receivers who can run the football and running backs who can catch and tight ends who can do everything. So the way that you counter that is that you have a player like Fred Warner who can cover like a DB and who could play run defense like an old school linebacker. The problem is that Fred Warners are not easily defined. He's very, very special. But I think that has set, even if the talent level because of injuries or whatever on the 49ers defense isn't as great as it was in 2019, the fact that they have Warner in his prime picks up a whole lot of slack. And we saw that last week. And then when they get
Greenlaw back, if Greenlaw is the same guy that we saw last season, then this is the defense that we're used to. Mm-hmm. I think this season it's been a little bit less than that. And if they get Greenlaw and Warner going full charge, this defense transforms. We'll see what happens defensive line. We know how banged up it is. But those 2 guys really set the tone for this defense.
Is Fred Warner the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year in your mind?
I there's someone else I know having a great year. I forget who it is. But again, we watch 49ers games. It's hard to believe someone would be more than. I can't imagine anybody's been involved in more takeaways than Fred Warner.
It's probably people talking about T.J. Watt or Myles Garrett. It seems to have been an edge rusher, right, in recent years. I know Nick Bosa wanted it a couple years ago. But in the case of Warner, he's doing everything, and he's able to score as well. That's huge. Yep. When you talk about Defensive Player of the Year, at the end of the year, they're going to play all the highlight reels that are going to convince voters one way or the other. Warner picking a pass off, sprinting 45 yards, diving at the pylon is going to be a hell of a closing argument.
Very rarely do you leap for an interception, fall down on your back in the middle of the field, get up, and then
run
run
back.
for a touchdown.
He's amazing.
That was
He's amazing.
that was like all the Superman play on both ends. Superman to get the interception because he's leaping in the air, and then Superman to be flying. It was Jacoby Brissett. He flew through, so maybe it wasn't as impressive, but it looked impressive. And I got to be the front runner. I mean, listen, somebody from Baltimore could be up there. Like there's going to be somebody out there who gets a bunch of sacks, but just from what I've seen, I can't imagine anybody who would be ahead of Fred Warner right now.
He is locked in. It was really, I asked him after the game because I saw him running his little huddle there before they put on the pads, and he was really fired up. Normally that's a little gathering and they're chit-chatting, but he was already doing his full uniform yelling at the guys. And he said, yeah, I thought they needed a little extra after we got embarrassed.
How many speeches
last week
do you
by
think
the
he
Rams.
does every pregame? I think 3.
It might be. There might be one in the locker room as well.
Yeah, I did a column on him last year about that. I think it was 3 pregame speeches, each one of them a little bit different. But normally that for the one you're talking about isn't like a speech; it's kind of a conversation.
Yeah,
everybody shares stories. That one was a speech.
That was a speech. He was already a little hoarse after that. And I talked to the other guys. Like I think it was Devondre Campbell was like, "Oh yeah, we listened this time." And what was really neat to me is that the linebacker play, besides the Demetrius Flanagan-Foles play where he got caught up at the end and it was a 50-yard gain for the Patriots, the linebacker play didn't stick out like a sore thumb in a bad way after Warner went out. And that showed me that his leadership in that game and the tone that he set, the fact that it stuck through the second half, that's good for the
Coach
49ers.
Warner, co-defensive coordinator.
Coach
I don't
Warner.
think there's any question. He's like essentially the co-defensive coordinator, and he should be. Why would you
He's got
do
the
it?
radio in his helmet.
Why would
in
it
these
be any
games,
different?
What should concern the 49ers about Arizona on and off the field? This is from Michael Lieberman. I know Michael Lieberman lives down in L.A. Nice to hear from him. Well, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., Connor's a good running back. He's
heard him before.
Yeah,
he's heard him before.
He's a load too. So if they have to buckle up and play run defense. They did this last week against the heavy rushing attack, and they didn't the past 2 weeks before that. And I think this 49ers defense goes as this run defense goes, because if they can stop that run, that's when they could pin their ears back. Bosa had the fastest get-off time on average over the past 7 years. That means he wasn't worried about the run.
Yeah.
He's pinning his ears back, and he's
that
getting
last
after
sack was unbelievable.
Yep.
I mean, that was like sprinter speed around that left tackle. Absolutely. Always stop the run is the number one thing. If you can't stop the run, you're not going to win the NFL. I will say it wasn't like Jacoby Brissett was going to be pressing them downfield with the passing game.
Yeah.
And they have been hurt by those just deep downfield throws. The safeties are kind of misaligned. The cornerbacks can't stay with the ball. And Stafford killed them like Tutu Atwell. And Stafford, that's not the greatest receiver in the whole world, but a great quarterback. Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison could throw those kind of balls. The Cardinals have other receivers who can, go up for those kind of balls. Let's see if I don't think this is going to happen every week. I'm not saying it will, but we have seen it a couple weeks now. Obviously, Justin Jefferson destroys them in Minnesota. Are there defensive backs who we all think are very talented? These are talented, faster than they've had in the past. George Odom was not fast. Malik Mustafa is probably faster than him. Jair Brown is a fast guy. We'll see if Hufanga goes back. He's not super fast, but he's obviously a very good player. Are they going to blow plays deep? That cannot happen. And that would start the conversation about Nick Sorensen's ability to be defensive coordinator if this continues to happen.
Remember that in 2021, this defense was struggling up till week 9 is when Arizona, of all teams, came in and just smeared them. I mean, that was when they got run over.
That was Connor, right?
I think Connor and then Eno Benjamin ran over Drake Kirkpatrick. Remember the cornerback? It was ugly. And the offense for the Niners wasn't bad that game, but the defense gave up 40 plus. And people were talking about DeMeco Ryans. They're like, is he ready for this? And it was the next week where I think they moved Armstead inside a defensive tackle. They finally started stopping the run. And down the stretch, DeMeco Ryans made the absolute most of what they had. They were a little short on cornerbacks that year, so the Rams beat them in the NFC title game in the fourth quarter. But Ryans grew on the job, just like I think they're expecting Nick Sorensen to grow on the job. I mean, we talk about Jefferson. To me, that was they try to cover Jefferson with 2 safeties.
Yep.
You always have to have a cornerback on Justin Jefferson. I think that was a learning moment for Nick Sorensen. Those are the kind of things I think he's going to fix moving forward. It's hard to tell, I agree, if they fixed the things because Jacoby Brissett was not going to be able to challenge them downfield with what he has to work with in New England. But this next week, this is going to be a little bit more of a test to see if that defense has taken a step forward.
I imagine Arizona's going to push it. Like they might as well try. And we'll see if the 49ers can hold up. And then Geno Smith's going to do it on Thursday night after that. He's got the guys who can do it. DK Metcalf can go get the ball. But that's always been a great matchup for Chargers. But we weren't asked about Seattle. We were asked about Arizona. Next question.
This is from Bo Adams. I think the 49ers are the most complete team in the NFC, but have struggled a little bit. Yeah. Is there a more complete team or close to a complete team in the NFC? So now we're zooming out from the NFC West to the NFC. This is where it gets really interesting because it's hard to tell. New Orleans came out of the gate just torrid, but all of a sudden hit a wall compared to at least what the first 2 weeks looked like. Then there's Philly, who just got thrashed the other day by Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was able to beat Detroit, who obviously has looked good other than the game against the Buccaneers.
Well, one team's looked good the whole time. Sam Darnold's Minnesota.
And a minute, we're talking about the Vikings in week 2. So I guess you have to give it to the team that's been the most consistent through 1 month. But this is why we don't only use September to evaluate.
I don't think very many teams are good right now. I really don't. And we talk about the September, the preseason without guys playing much. There's holdouts across, guys just getting back into shape. I don't know who's good. I don't know. The 49ers are in this group. I don't know if they're good. I think they are, but I don't know.
Well, they have a bit of a track record too.
But the Eagles and Cowboys do too, and I think they both might not be good. So like everything's been measured. Washington looks good. Are they really good? I think they're a terrible defense. Yeah. So Jane Daniels does great things, but we don't know. It depends. Let's see these teams start playing each other. Let's get into the heart of the season. I think Detroit's the best team in the NFC. That's what I think. The defense did not show it last night, but that was potentially just a bad game. I just see the players they've got. The running backs they've got. I think Ozzie Goffel was at 18 for 18 last night. Just played a sublime game. They've got receivers who make plays. Defensively, they got talent. I don't know if that's going to show up in the biggest games. Did not show up in the 49ers in the second half of the NFC Championship game. But I just think if you're going to ask me who I think the number 1 seed in the NFC is going to be, I think it's going to be Detroit.
Well, and it would be fascinating to see the 49ers and the Lions play again, but in a dome. Mm-hmm. And given what I saw from Detroit defensively yesterday, I don't know if that would be a very good thing for them against Purdy and Jennings and maybe
the
Ayuk.
If have 3 receivers going, if they have got Ayuk, Jennings, and Debo going, and McCaffrey,
Pearsall maybe by that time.
That is going to be a really good offense.
Yep. And that's one thing, even if they do have to play that game on the road, I know we're thinking way far out, it would be inside, which I think that's an important factor to consider in the postseason, being able to play on that fast track inside. Take a look at this. I know people won't be able to see it, but so offense is on the x-axis and defense is on the y-axis. Look at
Washington's way out there on the offense, way down there
on the bottom. But that's quite something. The 49ers got Jalen Graham today, who's on Washington's practice squad. The reason that he is being bounced back and forth between these two teams is because Washington is run by Adam Peters, who helped build the current 49ers. Yep. He's now the head personnel executive over in Washington. So obviously, the Commanders are much better run than they were in the past. Jaden Daniels is having one of the best starts we've ever seen from a rookie, probably the best rookie start we've seen since Brock Purdy a couple of years ago.
CJ Stroud was
Stroud was really good last season too. So these young quarterbacks, if they're in a good situation, that they'll show very quickly if they have it. And it looks like Daniels does. I don't know if his defense does. So far, they haven't shown that. So we do have to look out for them when we're evaluating the NFC.
Yeah, let's get through another 3-4 game. Let's get through another month. Maybe the Vikings are the best team. Maybe Tampa's the second best team. Let's see. I don't think so, but Minnesota's making me have to make some adjustments, I think, or at least so far.
Has Purdy erased all doubts about his game at this point? What about him goes underappreciated?
You're talking to 2 Purdy people here, by the way. And David's led the way on this, that this guy's just good. It's just like everything you see from him is good. What I wrote about on Sunday was he was doing stuff that he is actually not considered to be good at. athleticness. Now, we've all seen it. If you've watched the games, he is more athletic than he is given credit for. His legs are explosive. He's not a run the ball for 50 yards guy, but he's a guy that gets away from
Quadzilla,
yeah, exactly.
right? Like there's massive.
He's got Nick Bosa legs.
Exactly. So it's
Bosa,
good for a burst, but then it looks like he gets a trailer hitched onto him after 10 yards.
Yeah, it's not the fastest 40 time, but he can get those, get 6 yards on 3rd and 4, which we saw in the two first downs of the last game. And he's not going to throw it 100 yards, but you don't have to throw it 100 yards. You have to throw it 40 yards accurately at the right time, the right place. And he is good. He's always been good at this. So like Drew Brees was good at this. Again, you're not going to just say, go throw it 60 yards. The guy's just sprinting. Throw it the right 40 yards, the right time when the defense is not set up for it. He did that last game. I don't think it's a new thing. It's just being emphasized. And I do think it's being emphasized because defenses are playing him just to throw those mid-range passes. Right? That's the bread and butter of the Shanahan offense. Maybe this is equivalent to why Ayuk isn't putting up the numbers, because they're taking away that Ayuk slant. That is where they've got on 3rd down. They're going to try to throw it to Brandon Ayuk, a slant over the middle, and other teams are beginning to say, let's take that away. The timing pass, we're taking that away. Sometimes Purdy has forced it. I think the antidote to that is go over the top. Go over the top to the sides. Go over the top on deep crossers. You got to get good blocking if that happens, and they're getting good blocking. And Purdy has the arm to get it to these guys. Yeah. So, we're talking to two people who've never really doubted Brock Purdy. I only doubted him when I hadn't really seen him, because I was like, this 7th round pick, why? This Shanahan's just falling in love with his little quarterback. What's going on? Then I saw him play. This guy's a really good quarterback. This guy's a really good quarterback. He feels it. He is somebody that is plugged in the Shanahan vibe in a way that Jimmy Garoppolo never was, in a way that other quarterbacks, obviously Trey Lance never was. And he does have physical attributes that people don't think he has. You just get stuck on the 7th round, last pick of the draft, 6'1", doesn't look like a super stud. He does all these things. He is one of the best 6-7 quarterbacks in the NFL, maybe at times, one of the top 4 quarterbacks in the NFL.
I think this season, we're already seeing it have his reputation as one of the top guys is solidifying in front of our eyes.
He is not going to bust out. This is not going to happen. I'm convinced of this.
He's shown that he's got a high floor. And, I covered Andrew Luck at Stanford, and so I got to see a quarterback who had total command of what was happening on the field. You could tell when you're watching him in person. It's tough to see on TV, but when you're watching him in person, you could tell that he knew where the other 21 guys on the field were. And because of that, he wasn't skittish, and he just had that aura coming from him that a mistake was not going to happen. With Brock Purdy, this is at the next level now. I'm talking about Stanford, Luck at Stanford. With Brock Purdy, I get that similar feel. I didn't get that feel every snap from Jimmy Garoppolo before. Thought he did a lot of good things for the 49ers, but Brock Purdy has taken this to a completely different level. And you mentioned some of the stats in your article. He was already throwing accurate deep passes last year. Now we're seeing respect from opposing defensive coordinators. They've faced 8-man coverages at an extremely high rate. You only drop that many guys into coverage because you're afraid, especially with the 49ers missing weapons, you're only doing that because you're afraid the quarterback is going to pick you apart without that extra DB. And Purdy has still been able to do that. And I think you had a great point. He's been doing it by going over the defense for those deeper passes.
And there's reasons for, no McCaffrey does change the things. You don't have to cover the flats as much, and you're not going to get run over for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Maybe Mason can do it once in a while. McCaffrey was doing it all the time. But then you add this downfield passing, this, ability to keep plays alive, and then throw the slingshot pass that Purdy's been doing since he was a rookie accurately to Christian McCaffrey. If this all comes about in the right way, if everyone is healthy, let's say in November, December, and into January, I think it's still going to be a Brock Purdy-led offense, though. I still think it's going to be like Kyle Shanahan had when Matt Ryan's MVP year in 2016. Like that, he was fine throwing the ball with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was going to throw it to the right place, and they were going to score 520 points, whatever. Now they have a 17th game, so maybe you might get to 600 or something like that. I think Shanahan will be fine with that if the quarterback he really believes in, and I don't think he has any doubt that Brock Purdy is going to get him in the right play. He might go for more fourth downs this way. He might, obviously he's pushing it downfield more, and that opens up everything for, then defenses have to cover that. That pushes the safeties back, and then guess what? Those mid-range routes are back open again.
That's the chess match, and the 49ers feel that they could be ahead of the curve at every step of this with the personnel they have and the quarterback they have. This is a good one, and I think this fits the theme of our first Q&A here at the Standard. Please share about how you ended up at the Standard. Second question, was this a package deal?
I only go where David goes. Come on now. I'll start. I guess the first contact was me. It just, I've been talking to the Standard for a couple of years. Since I started talking, I've been reading. And that's when I first heard of it a couple of years ago. I remember it. During the Warriors' run to the finals in 2022, we were talking to the Standard, and I just liked everything about it. I liked the smart stories. I liked the light-footedness. I liked the investment. Obviously, there was a great investment dating back 2-3 years ago. And as we talked, and as I became very convinced that the athletic model was kind of moving away from the local sense, that's fine. That's their decision. And I wanted to continue to do what I do, which is local ties to the local teams. And then, I'm at a Warriors media day. I'm just going to write about the Giants if they make a big move. Then I'm going to go to the Giants. I'm going to have a one-on-one with Buster Posey. And then I'm going to go to the 49ers game. These are all things that I truly believe in. And I just became convinced this was the place where I wanted to do it. And it all worked out in my mind. And David became somebody that maybe I helped guide to say, that would be a great person to get here too. Let's cover the 49ers great. And let's do it. And David has such a great digital presence. David has people who trust him on the 49ers. What am I doing? A tribute to David Lombardi here? I'm going to stop here.
But I'm not stopping you.
It just made so much sense. David's somebody that we hired at The Athletic, one of the first. David, I guess it was you covered the first year kind of on spec, and then it was like, we're hiring this guy. And in the early days of the Athletic Bay Area, David was somebody I counted on. That's when I was actually management. I'm not management with the Standard. I was at management with the Athletic, and David was somebody I counted on and became somebody like a fixture on the 49ers beat. So that was easy. David, take all that praise and forget about it. I never said it. There's no record of this. No one ever heard it. But now explain how you decided to come here.
Well, in 2017, you gave me the look for The Athletic, which was really cool. I think that I emailed you 2 days before training camp, maybe the night before 49ers training camp happened. And you said, the 49ers are terrible this year. Yeah. We don't have anybody to cover the 49ers. We're just getting this started. Can you head out there? And so I did, and I had to learn everything on the fly because I had covered college football before then. As I mentioned earlier, nobody knew any jersey numbers on the 49ers besides like Bowman, who got cut about 5 games into that season. So I didn't cover a win until November. Yeah, until November. 10,
they
started 0-9, I think.
Okay,
yeah,
something like that.
0-9, 1-10. And then Garoppolo got traded, and they won the last 5, and things took off from there. But I always admired, your courage coming to The Athletic to build something new in 2017. Appreciated you so much for bringing me along for that ride, and we built something really cool over those years. And then I saw this opportunity with the Standard, and I think it reminded us of that that opportunity to build something special again. So working with you has been awesome, and I was very excited to have the chance to do the same thing, run it back.
Let's just praise each other more on this video. But no, it's great to do it with David. One thing I told Griffin Gaffney, the CEO, was there's strength in is multiplying effect. One person is good, 2 people is better. It just feels like there's a momentum with 2 people, and then probably 3 and 4. I'm not going to talk about what those 3 and 4 person might be. I don't know. But there is a power in being able to present multiple voices at a time, like we're doing right here. And very happy with the way it's going. We're just doing what we do. That's what I keep telling people. I don't even feel like I really switched jobs. I didn't. I'm doing the same thing. Just switch places where I do it. But in the digital world, if you can just do that because people are just following you through social media or following you in their own way, maybe there will be a subscription process with the standard. That's one of the reasons we're being brought on. The sports helps that. That's all great, but we're doing the same job. We're not changing what we do, and I had great feeling for that. The fidelity towards what we do, our work ethic, our sense of who we are. And I will say, David was someone that I could just say, I need you to go to a Giants game after you were right after you were at a Raiders camp practice.
No, this was Niners. Niners had their
okay.
open camp practice at Levi's, and I sprinted up 101.
Yeah, it's like, can you get to the Giants? And he goes to the Giants, and he writes me a really interesting story. And I said, we got to hire this guy. So no more compliments, please. We will start ripping each other for the last part of this broadcast, but that's a good question.
I think that is a good question. We got about 10 minutes left before we hit the hour on this, and we can go back to the 49ers. This is interesting right here. Any insight into how running Leeds United, the soccer club, has changed the Niners front office? I was able to visit Leeds this summer. The one way that things might have changed or helped the 49ers is in the sport of soccer, they are very, very particular about the grass. So the groundskeepers at Leeds have been in touch with the groundskeepers at Levi's, and Levi's does have the best grass in the NFL.
They had issues, obviously, famously had issues for a couple of years, but once they got it right, that grass is really good. It's really good field. And I'll say it here, I give Jed York credit. He has never said we're going to field turf or AstroTurf or artificial, never. And it costs them $1 million or $2 million a year. That's $1 million or $2 million a year. That is a great investment for the health of their players. Why wouldn't you want the safest best field you can have, and not put them on that artificial surface, which we know produces more leg injuries, has produced Nick Bosa tearing his ACL in New York. And I know I talk about it with Bosa all the time, just chatting or for a column recently. He appreciates that. Players understand when owners are investing. It's not they're paying Nick Bosa $34 million a year, $1 million a year to keep all your guys a little safer.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, my goodness. I will say I talked to Parag Marate after the Ayuk and Trent Williams deals were done, because people have been asking me. And I said, I don't think Parag is being distracted by leads. I think he's distracted for doing lead stuff by Ayuk and Williams, because he's going to be involved in that. And he was, and he told me, I couldn't go to leads at all. Like I had to do this stuff. And then I think he just got back from leads. I think he said he's taking Frank Gore out there for a trip to a game. It was probably 2 weekends ago. So maybe the Leeds people will get mad because he wasn't totally focusing on that. But his number one priority, his number one job for the 49ers corporation is to get these deals done. And that's what he was doing.
Yep. And they did get them done. Now they're waiting to see if they have Brandon Ayuk play up to the contract. So we'll have to see if this season evolves into that for the 49ers. Somebody asked if Leonard Floyd's a disappointment. And I say absolutely not. He's number 10 out of all defensive linemen in pressure rate so far. I think that the problem, Tim, is that everybody just sees a sack and they judge defensive line play on that. But Floyd was all over the place. He was the one that had the pressure on Warner's pick.
Yes.
He got into
right in his face.
Yeah, right in his face. So I think Floyd is a consistent player. He's a pro. He's had 10 sacks in each of the past 4 years. He's played in, I think, 112 straight games. I mean, you talk about availability and injuries, and I mean, a guy that's played in 112 straight games and gives you 10 sacks a year, and I think he'll give the 49ers that amount by the time this is said and done. Can't really say he's a disappointment. I think he already has at least one sack so far this season.
Yeah, I think she's cut down a little bit on snaps, or maybe this is just what he's been doing the last few years. He doesn't play 80% of the snaps, but I don't know that they expect him to do that. Yeturgros Matos is going to be very important on the other side. He's bumping in to defensive tackle on some of the pass rush stuff, which is interesting. But this is where, the Drake Jackson, that's one of these draft picks that didn't quite hit, second round pick 3 years ago, I guess now, they could really use him.
Yeah,
they could depth, defensive end, some of these things, but you're not going to have a perfect roster. And you look at it, by the way, I think the 49ers have the best roster in the NFL, even if it's a little less than it was last season. You're not going to have perfect players at every spot. Leonard Floyd is perfectly capable of playing that position, and he's going to have 10 sacks at the end of the season. What I like about him, he's just persistent. He's not going to
he's a
burst.
motor.
Yeah, he's not going to burst past that tackle right away, probably. But he's going to make a move or in a counter move, and he's going to be there when Bosa flushes the quarterback out. I think he's the best guy like that they've had in a long time. When you talk about Cleveland Furl, when you talk about some of these other guys, I think Floyd is better than he's the best person at that position, opposite Nick Bosa they've had since Steve Ford.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about effort issues last year in the NFC Championship game with Chase Young, and 49ers had to address those. Well, this is the opposite of that, right? You have Floyd is known to have one of the best motors in the entire league. So they obviously signed him to fill a very
he's not as talented as Chase Young or Randy Gregory probably, but he gives them a consistency I think that they really need.
I am looking through a few more. We have a compliment on the Office Space. Somebody said that.
Nobody's doing any funny motions back there
in the background.
Maybe they are.
They just flipped this around. I guess the studio used to be facing the wall, but now we have the Office.
It's like today's show.
Us.
We're gonna crowd back there.
Some Bo Adams. This is something for next time. He said playing the Vikings or the Lions on the road in the playoffs is a possibility. Do we have any data on Purdy playing in domes? I don't have it in front of me, but if that starts to become a possibility, that's definitely something.
They would rather have that than him playing in rain. I'll put it that way.
Purdy in a dome. Also, the ball also slipped out of his hand in Minnesota. It was hot in that building. I mean, it was, and on the field, I understand it was like a good 10 degrees hotter. It was still 90 outside that day. The AC, I guess, doesn't work great in Minnesota because they don't need it as much that far up north. But I'm pretty sure that ball slipped out of his hand back in week 2. And with wet weather, that has been an issue for Brock Purdy. How about one more, and we could wrap this up. Well, this one's easy. Choose one, Purdy or prime Alex Smith. Purdy, but Purdy's ranked top in efficiency since he joined the league. Alex Smith was never close to that.
I like Alex Smith. I thought he was very good during the Harbaugh years, but again, there was a reason why Colin Kaepernick beat him out, because it wasn't a dynamic quarterback playing. And Brock Purdy is not known to be dynamic. My God, he's been dynamic for almost his entire. You just look at the plays. You look at the downfield plays. Some of it is because Shanahan's so good at scheming up, but recently he's just throwing the ball downfield. Guys are sort of open, and he's throwing a ball downfield. They haven't had all the monster Shanahan schemed up. Like Richie James gets 190 yards once because Shanahan could just scheme it up. I don't think that's what's happening this season. I think this is Brock Purdy just saying, that guy is open by half a step. I'm getting it to him, and those guys are making the plays. I don't want to, fawn all over this guy, and we'll see on Purdy. You got to win big games consistently, but there might be a column in the near future where I say this is what a $60 million quarterback looks like. Maybe I'm going to write that.
Teaser. Yeah, that's a little teaser trailer right there. There might be something about the 49ers salary cap in the future too, because that's something that we're going to have to pivot our attention to.
I'm always telling them I love those salary cap stories. Do those salary cap stories because no one else does it as well. So no more praise, by the way. No more praise.
Awesome. Well, I think we about hit a full hour here. So everybody, thank you so much for joining. We'll definitely do some more of these. This is the beginning. We're only a couple weeks into this, but so are the 49ers. And I think the season is just heating up. And Tim just came back from a press conference introducing Buster Posey as the president of the Giants. And obviously the Warriors just started their training camp as well. So a lot's going to be happening at once. We'll make sure we cover it from whatever arena, stadium, ballpark that we're at, and here from the San Francisco Standard's office. Go ahead and check it out, sfstandard.com, and put in your email on one of those articles so you could be notified whenever one of our new articles comes out.
And there will be many. There will be many. David and I write a lot.
Yeah, we're cranking them out as it speaks. I think as we speak, we've got. Both you and I wrote something on Purdy over the last couple of days. I wrote something on the defense after Sunday, and more coming this week. 49ers play the Cardinals, 1:00, Levi Stadium on Sunday. We'll both be at that game. Anyway, for Tim Kawakami, David Lombardi, we will talk to you soon.